Hello, welcome to the workshop. In this video I thought I'd talk a little bit about French cleat designs and how you can go from your existing layout to a more structured modular system, and also about how I go about the design process and how ideas go through a phase of evolution, sometimes quite drastically different to what I had in mind, to end up as a finished product. As with all of these things, if you'd like to know more details, just have a look on my website, neatfrenchcleat.com. Now, one of the most common questions I get, and I see on various forums, etc., is how far apart your wall cleats should be. And that's not actually the key factor in having a really highly efficient wall that looks great. The thing that matters most is the distance from here, right in the point, to the bottom of the wall board or tool holder. This distance matters more than the distance apart that the cleats are on the wall. This has to have some relation to the spacings that you have on the wall in order to end up with, in this case, 6mm or 1/4 inch gaps or 1/2 inch gaps or whatever you want. You have to pay attention to here, otherwise you end up with your tool holders doing this on your wall. I'm sure you've all seen that everywhere. Or you end up with gaps here, and you don't want either of those things, and you can avoid them by paying attention to that dimension, and you can end up with a wall like this. Anyway, this is my what I call a basic wall board. I have this height in a whole range of widths around there, 15 or 18 different widths to suit various tool sizes that might go on it. But I've always been aware that this is a little bit too high in some cases. So this week I drew up these what I call half boards that match perfectly with the height of this. There are two, as you can see, to one, and here I can have a shelf or a wall board, and these come in 15 different widths. So there are 30 new products on the website, or will be by the end of this coming week. And this is, as you can see, quite suitable for smaller things on a shelf, but I didn't want two shelves like in this case. So I have some more flexibility, and what this also has done, it's allowed me to add an extra cleat at the bottom where I didn't have anything before, and now I can put some wall boards. I've also designed some half depth shelves so that they can go at the bottom and not encroach too much on the bench. I'm also playing around with this little tape holder. Once again, that evolved. I had something different in mind, and a couple of iterations later it's looking something like this. This is still a work in progress. The main thing that I've been working on this week, in the very early days, one of the first things that I did was I cut down 3 1-litre bottles of lemonade or whatever was in the water, whatever, and screwed them to a fairly standard French cleat and just hung them on the wall. And this has been holding my cable ties for quite some time. But obviously now I'm doing things somewhat smarter. I wanted to play around with this design and bring it into the modular system. And I'd bought from Amazon these plastic containers, and my idea was to cut them down into either half the height or 1/3 and 2/3, and I would put them in something similar to the spray can holder here. And yeah, I cut them down on the table saw, which was A, a little bit sketchy, and B, doesn't give a very clean cut. So I abandoned that idea and thought, well, I've made in the past, I've got my pencil caddy that's got a living hinge, it's a half cup. So I thought, well, I could make my own cups instead of the ones from Amazon, and I do away with the sketchiness. Well, partly buying things from Amazon, which isn't great for the planet, but you know, this looks quite good. It also matches some other designs that I've got within the system, These living hinges take quite a while to cut on the laser, and they're quite fiddly weeding out the masking tape afterwards. So then I thought, well, why don't I make square cups? So I started off with this design. The advantage to this is they cut quicker, probably use around the same amount of material, but they have a bigger volume because they're square. So then I made one slightly taller, and eventually I settled on 4 heights. So I've got this, what I call a 1, a 2, a 3 and a 4 high. And you can see here the low one is particularly good for, in this case I've got some cotton buds in there, but they could be quite good for small screws, washers, nuts, bolts and so on. You could glue on whatever's inside it. So you can see, obviously, it's not as advantageous as having a clear container, but I try and, I don't really want to use acrylic or perspex or whatever in the workshop too much, just through the obnoxious gases, and it's not exactly a green material to use. Here I've got some pencils in this same height. I've got, sorry, these are pens, pencils. I've got cable ties. If you're a crafter, they could be quite good for knitting needles and so on. Even these bamboo sticks would be quite, or bits of doweling, that sort of thing. So that's what I've been up to this week. As you can see, that's quite often the way with design, I find, is I have a concept. I think, oh, well, I'm going to replace this, so I'm going to use round things. I go down that route. It's not as successful as I thought, so then I think, well, I'll start making my own containers, and I'm still, in my mind, I've still got the round concept, but then that evolves into the square boxes, which are far more flexible. And these, when they're on the website later in the week, they'll come in 1 wide, 2 wide or 3 wide with the 4 different heights. So there are a phenomenal amount of combinations that you can use on your wall to hold whatever it is you're trying to store. And that's the point, is making a home for everything, and then everything is in its home. And that way you work more efficiently, the workshop's tidier, and so on. Anyway, I've been Alan, you've been watching, and I'll see you in the next video.